Hello everybody to Desert Squid, a Queer Freakinings podcast. Some basic introduction. My name is Alice of Water. I'm a trans woman, pronoun she her internet critic. I'm a media archiver and a genre of weirdo. Let me introduce my co-host. You all?
I am your co host and also Ludovico on the internet. My pronouns are they, them. I'm non binary. And yes, I am here to talk about a very special thing.
So what the heck is Freakinings? What is even what you're talking about? What? So I think it's better to give some backstory before this. So I'll give some general backstory. So in the or in like this was 2010, but in like the late 90s and early 2000s, we started seeing this. First, there was a couple of trends. First, we started seeing a lot of like supernatural like television shows, both generally aimed for adults and also very aimed for like teens and young adults. So we had
Oh,
shows like Buffy, like the X Files, like those are this trend of like various like generally interest with the supernatural. That with a lot of there was a lot of interest in that kind of a lot with stuff like cryptids and Bigfoot and an overall interest in the supernatural and what is or is not real. So, and along with that interest, we had also a rise in a lot of like huge cults. You had like a lot of like, of course, there was stuff like, of course, there was stuff like already from the 90s, like the like hackers. There was stuff like slackers and an overall rise in a lot of like musical like stuff like new metal or and certain parts of alternative rock that were not there. There was a general interest in each code, so that also messed with like supernatural crypts, so a lot of media and of teams and younger persons about like supernatural, Bigfoot, and stuff like that. Uh, and of course there's the X Files with Ludo.
yeah. There's also two big cultural touchstones in that era. One of them, the TV show The X Files. I watched some of it as a kid. I was scared by it. The intro team scared me. Uh, but it very much influenced the cultural landscape of the time to popularize stuff like cryptids, aliens, and conspiracy theories. It also got to the point where other networks were trying to copy that style, so everybody wanted like its own X Files on their network. And the other big cultural touchstone would be the Blair Witch Project, which was a movie released, I think that was 99.
Yeah. So I think it's very important to talk about it very well. So Ludo explains much in the movie. I'll first explain a bit of backstory. So since art has existed, there's always been a general interest with waking the suspense of disbelief. As art often either in human or human ways replicates humanity, so often it reflects humanity's like interest in the not seen, in the weird, the bizarre, even just supernatural. So there's always been an interest in a media that replicates. Are we seeing something in this? Is this actually real? There's some examples. The most in visual media, one of the most classic examples in art history would be like Haxen, which is a Swedish movie from 1922. It's a silent movie that claims to be a documentary. It's about witches.
Very good, I can recommend it.
Very good, very atmospheric. It's very much it's interesting because at the same time the something like Haxen was trying to mimic the form of a documentary and capture and claim to capture races and the supernatural. There was also we found out I cannot remember this, but one of the first two documentaries was this thing about like an indigenous person in Greenland that it later became known that it was fake. And there's a noise interest about capturing what we think is real, be it reality or not reality, and that we got, and then that goes by the times. There's of course the famous story of the War of the Worlds, which from what I understand it's actually a bit more complicated and may actually not inspire people. But there's still that image of stuff of like media capturing reality or pretending to be reality.
Yeah, I
In a
think
way,
it inspired a lot of people of like the later eras to try to capture that moment and sell people fake documentary.
yeah, it's interesting. Of course, this was not just to give a brief message. It's not just in Adobe. This is not just in movies or even just way. Of course, you had stuff like even just some sock rock acts like Screaming Jay, Harkings, pretending to be like a witch doctor to scare people. Is part of that, and one of the biggest, maybe biggest cases, even if it's still somewhat still somewhat unknown compared to other recent examples, would be like the movie Cannibal Holocaust by
Yeah,
director Lucio. What's the director name?
Lucio Fulci.
Lucio Fazzi.
As the Italian, I can say it.
Yeah, but Cannibal Holocaust was interesting because it was this movie about people going to an island and then being eaten by
Cannibals.
carnivores, racist immersive carnivores. That people, it was marked because the way the movie was marketed, people could not, the actors could not then do other things for a while. It sparked some things like because for that time the image was war, so a lot of people thought, wait, is this real? It went to a court case and that the actors had to go to prove that they were not killed. It's
What it does have is actual murder of animals. So
yeah, it has,
don't watch it for the racism, and also don't watch it for the animal cruelty. It's bad.
yeah, but there's that because it started even if it was still an underground this thing. It started this wave of like trying to suck. Using, of course, there was audience examples of this, but it was using sock and Harlem to about realities, about is this real, is this not, what are we, it's really happening. Of course, there was the other famous example of that era from Slock with these faces of that, which is these tapes of by his dads, where the first fall was basically just stage dads. Then some random person just got the rights to it and then actually used real dads.
Yeah, there's some stuff there that's not good.
Yeah, but there's always this interest about, especially in horror, because horror a lot is already playing on societal fields. There's a lot of that, whatever for slug or even for just artistic purposes, was like is this playing with that, playing even if that's from acting with is this actually happening, playing with the societal fears of the of the feel of doing things, of doing disgusting acts, and then just showing it to everybody, playing with the feel of media.
Actually, now that I think about it, like the only two popular kinds of fake documentary I know is either like something horror or transgressive, or like sex stuff, like fake sex documentaries, the kind that they sold to grindhouse theaters at the time.
Yeah, but this was still mainstream. Yes, Cannibal Holocaust had a lot of marketing, and still some bad. But you wouldn't know about it. Same with like Faces of Death. You still have to. These days you have to be. They don't get talked as much if you're not in certain circles. There's also some regional variants, but those are still very much localized and have to be in certain ways to know it. A famous example would be in the UK. There was something called Ghost Watch, which was this BBC special, where they use real reporters and in this fictional story about investigating ghosts that actually got some cars, but that's still contained to a certain place in a certain era. In a way that doesn't with our next thing. Lula, you can go. It's your part.
So
Explain.
yeah, now that we described the landscape of the time, with basically X Files and the Blair Witch Project being these big things, I think around 99, I think, or probably early 2000s, there appeared a website on the internet called Freaky Links, and basically on the first glance, it appeared like one of those pages you would see on Angel Fire from like cryptid hunters or people who were investigating ghosts or the paranormal. But on second glance, it becomes very clear that it was more than that.
Yeah, the we talk more about the site, but that site later was later by made by a little company called Haxon. Funny enough, named after the 1922 movie. And Haxon was also the studio that produced a little movie called The Blair Witch, which Ludwig gives some explanation.
I mean, the Blair Witch was a giant thing at the time, and I remember also being scared of it, just like X Files. So I guess both were doing their job.
Yeah, the thing with The Blair Witch, it was the first time that stuff got very mainstream, because it was made by a group of I think 5 film students. So there, and it was the first time they used shaky cam was really used. It had been used for a bit of like what's called like I guess saw it on like CTO video movies made on like very low budgets for like very low B movie BSS. But because of like very smart marketing, plus the first time that was really exposed to the mainstream, it was a lot of people's first interaction with the whole. Is this real? Is this not?
Yeah, it was just a big boom of fake documentary style and also the shaky cam style.
Because it was by a non-team but that know how to market smartly. It was by with what they were known casts and that style. If you're just not a film buff or anything, or even from somebody from that are not familiar with that style of filmmaking, it seemed weird enough. In that nothing about it is really evidently fake.
There's no big special effects or anything. Yeah.
And and that and that and the cultural phenomenon that the Faroese was that led to a bunch of stuff like that, like the paranormal and everything. Even for now, it seems a bit hokey and a bit overdone. But you have to go, even if for somebody that was not in the time there. It, from what I understand, it was extremely big. It got so Haxon was very much a company set to be the next big thing.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mentioned, that site appeared, and it turned out to be a thing by Haxon and not actually a real thing. So, like the fake documentary, this was a fake site, and it was basically promoting a new show on Fox. And the funny thing is, even before people realized it was like a kind of ARG, there were like recommendations made to music, and later it would become very obvious that this was part of like a promotional deal between labels and Fox or the show to promote these songs. And what's also important to note is that this was like one of the earlier popular multimedia projects with mixed media. So basically having a site that ties into a show was a pretty big and new thing back in the time.
Yeah, I think it's very important to mention that why they were like, of course, they were non-mainstream and underground and stuff. Than with mixed media. This for a TV show made by the year. This was extremely kind of new, because if you go to the site, it has a lot of that. Like I was talking about that, like that very much like cryptid hunting, hacker, slacker thing. It very much feels something that it even was hosted on Iron Fire, so it very much feels something from that era. Like you could possibly, if you did not know this was a show, could bet that this was some old website by some weirdo.
Yeah, if you didn't know this was a show, it would take you some time to realize that it might be not legit. Although the writing isn't always
Yeah.
super convincing. Sometimes, like the let's say the foolery of the main writer is like it's apparent this person is kind of a joke.
And I think that's yeah. I think that it's very interesting. The music aspect is very interesting because very much because that music was like hosted on Haxon's site, so it was very much like a part of a deal by and and there was some expectation that this would become big. So it was, I guess, some journalists. This was it was very much like I was talking about. This was a conflation of several things. First, the X fight, like I mentioned, was very big, but it was already going a bit of a slump. Season 7 of the X fight changed a bit of things, and we led to season 8 having to replace Mulder, one of the big two iconic characters of the show, for like half of the episodes with the side of a new character. And why there was still very much a cultural cast here with it, and a coach and it was popular. You could notice a slump, a slump in both critics and ratings. But while that was going, it was still popular enough. There was some new shows, Radio Buffy, Rangers and stuff like that. And there was an interest, of course, in like this fusion of youth culture, like slackers and this aesthetic and musical stuff like new metal with the supernatural.
So yeah,
The,
a lot of
I've
the
seen,
music featured on the site and in the show is like alt rock and new metal and like stuff they thought they could like promote to younger viewers or like Gen Xers.
yeah, because there was a Zen, because it was very much something. Still, millennials was still very much like before. This was still a bit wide from millennials, so this was very much like the Gen Xers, and there was that general. Both there was a very honest actually part of like that culture, weird subculture, of like fusing that as a way we were fusing like we were spirit of like the clothes and the music with the supernatural. Because of course, if we were against society, we were a bit against the perceived notions, which of course the perceived notions could be what is real and what is not. But there was also a very commodified part of that. Very much commodified trying to get money out of that.
I mean, there is a hip hop episode that is specifically there to like promote hip hop groups.
Yeah, yeah. There was very much like a very much commodification, and there was very much a big commodification of that aesthetic. I guess people know of the hot topics and everything, but this is very much like very much like Viking is very much part of Fox and Haxon trying to be cool while using the red words, the very much cultural background of that and the X Files that need to think. I want to go into a couple of things.
But if you think about it, actually, they had everything to make like a hit. They had all the elements that you would need to be successful, you would think, when you hear
Yeah.
this.
But yes, programs start rising, and we go. I will give a some background as well now to the creative stuff. The show had two creators. I'll go over one because one is bad is more than the other. I guess first there was Greg of the two creators. There was Greg Hale, which is one of the people that founded Haxon. He was pretty much like one of the big producers of Haxon, and it's very much as no create. It's pretty much like credited as like creator of the show. Basically, Haxon's representative.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another person that some people might know the name of. A guy called David S. Goyer, writer of all three Blade movies, Dark City, plus Light Blade 3, Dark City, Ghostface Peter Vences, the Norman Batman, and of course, Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice. So, Guy is a bit of a no-name. If you're in any pop culture circle, you might have known him. He comes from a background. Cause he comes from a background. He's in his 20s. He started writing for very low-budget action movies with the Van Damme. Stuff like that one, or Kickboxer 2. He wrote some stuff for like very schlocky horror movies. Did some stuff, wrote demonic toys for Slogmasters, Z-list Slogmasters, New Moon.
Wait, the movie was literally called Kickboxer 2?
Yeah,
That's such a
because
lame name. Gonna call my Kung Fu movie Kung Fu 3.
I think it's a sequel to Kickboxer 1 or something.
Yeah, I hope. I hope it's not one of those movies that just starts with 2.
He wrote that as the second Quo movie, but he became big when you had like he became big when he wrote two things in the same year, 1998. He wrote Dark City and Blade.
Which both are like cult movies nowadays.
Yeah, but both things have a similar thing. They both have like very much like a cult aesthetic going to them. Blade was very much part of that aesthetic that we talk about like the various youth cults, because you have like the cool vampire hunter, where that wears a coat, the classic sword. It was barely much part of that aesthetic. Actually, the also had like a very much like aesthetic, sci-fi and
I guess
uh,
90s edgy comics also play a role in that
yeah,
tone and aesthetic.
yeah. Funny enough, W.S. Scott is as well as a comic writer. He wrote some very bad Justice League comics, if I remember well. But very much. But after that, he got some culture cashier. He got very popular and got some got because of Dark City and Blade. We, and also got the comic studio. In '99 he was co-writer in the actually surprisingly good work JSA for DC, which is a very actually kind of popular book about the old superheroes, like the original Flash, the original Green Lantern, stuff like that. Like the golden civilized version of them, with the co-writer James Robson.
Okay.
So he got some cashy here over that. There's very few info about Freaky Links, but
Yeah, we should note that researching like details about the casting or the pre-production of Freaky Links is not very easy in the year 2020.
it's a very much like show that insisted, and it's hard to know what. It's very much hard to know the backstory of it. But from what we can find out, basically this popularity led Guy to be get as co-creator. Very much have like the guy that wrote like City in Blade with the one of the producers as well as Haxon themselves to get a new success. Now here's things what you get. I will explain more in episode Ian. First, this show was meant to be called Fearsome, which is the name of the pilot episode.
Which, by the way, is a horrible name for a show. Extremely bad.
Very bad. But second, well, not famous. Let's just say there was we'll go over that, but there was an according to an article by the Chicago Times before this said there was a thing that we go on more detail in episode one. Well, that's to say that there was a bit of fighting between Goya and Fox over the show, which led Goya to step down. Which led Goya plus the representative of Haps and Greg to go from why Stephen Kate is going from like directly involved, going from being direct white to just being executive producers. And now Goya is Goya from when the show there to all its episodes will be listed by a name of Ricardo Festiva, which is
So basically, he took his name off of the project and replaced it with a fake name, which is always a
with a
good sign.
with a fake Latino name, with a fake
Yeah,
non-white name.
that's a double good sign. Wow.
it's yeah, we're not we're gonna address this most in episode one, but as I say that there's an uncomfortability just with around this because every episode has him listed as Ricardo for Steven. It's a fake non-white name, or at least a fake full name,
It's
race.
so he was only involved in the first episode, more or less.
Yeah, he was I think listed for as producer for the West, but I don't know how much he's involved. I cannot find
Yeah,
it from. The only thing he actually wrote and managed to vote while he was head writer was the first episode.
which is very different as we will discuss later in this podcast.
Yeah, I think it's very important to mention that the so that we'll go over when we talk about episode one. We're gonna go over it more, but there's a big difference between what episode one is and what the show would later be. A very very big difference. So it's very much very different. It's a difference. It's almost feels like a difference. So
In my opinion, it changed to the better.
yeah, wait, we're gonna over later, but it's very much saying for the better.
So we don't know how casting went right now, so we don't have a lot of information about that. But we will actually try to investigate some of that during the production of this show. We already have like a line of connection to one of the actresses that we might be able to like do an interview with her at some point or something. Who knows? Who knows what will happen in this incredible podcast called Desert Squid? So
Freaky Links podcast.
a queer Freaky Links podcast, as she said. So the main cast is basically 4 characters. But to go into detail with the main cast, Ethan Embry plays Derek, which is the main character. He's pretty cool. He's very funny. We're gonna talk a lot about him and his character, but he does a good job.
He so likes to touch corpses.
Yeah, we're gonna establish a pattern of his character later in this show, but rest assured, it's pretty comedic. His co-star, basically, his sidekick, is played by Karen Prince, who
With
plays
a
the
fun fact, in Power Rangers there's an arc where they use so footage from another others as Sentai the original Power Rangers. So instead of adapting, they just make them aliens, and the Kalim is one of the aliens.
Oh,
He's one of like the alien Power Rangers. Alien Ninja because the original show was Ninja Team, so they're alien ninjas.
nice. So if you always wanted to know what happened to the alien ninja that won, this is what happened. So the female main cast, wow, did I just say that word? The main cast woman was Lisa Sheridan, who plays Chloe Tanner. She sadly passed away last year, with very young, like in her 40s, as far as I know. But she plays basically the one of the romantic love interests, and also she's a lawyer, as far as I remember. Yes. And then we have Lisette Carrion, who plays Lan Williams, and she's basically the hacker girl, as far as I remember.
But we'll talk about much more of this, but Lan is probably one of the most confusing characters in the entire show in how she's written.
Yeah, she is like, it feels like she is written as an initial love interest and then gets put aside and written out of the show for like a third. But we'll go into detail with that in the episodes. But I would consider like that the show was like, didn't give her enough time in the show. That's my personal opinion. She should have been in more of it.
So yeah, just to give a guess, get the basic knowing what the cats will go over them more in episode one. But basically, the main character is it's like a bit of a like funny comedic dude that doesn't care a lot about things. Very much part of that aesthetic of the slacker hacker, of like the slacker blogger and everything.
Yeah, he basically tries to do his own business outside of society, and yeah, he's basically like an entrepreneur.
Kalim's character is probably one of the probably sadly the one of the most kind of the boring. He's just the kind of a boring kind of side character here.
I mean, he's sympathetic, but
Yeah,
he
sympathetic.
gets very much written into a corner for most of the
Yeah, there's
show.
a we're gonna go much better, much more into this episode one, but the show has some. It's about 2000 so, in its way so politics and the Karim like the other cat of Carol is very much like written in very much in like by white people like like even though for the time all white people and you can feel it.
Yeah, there's definitely a tokenism going on, and I guess the best would be to like if we get to the a specific episode where that's really gonna be a thing, where there's gonna be a lot of racial stuff going on, that we might even get maybe someone to co-host and talk about that who's like actually black. That might be a good idea that I
Yeah.
just had.
Yeah, but the love interest is also a bit more is also kinda she's very much shows the subs. This is gonna be a positive podcast, and we do like the show, but it's very much something written by by white dudes in the 2000s. In that, like with the issues the show has with race, there's a lot of the show also has some issues with gender, and she's very much put and that love interest is very much portrayed as like, oh, she's a woman that's dating this guy, and also sometimes just to me not fun enough.
Yeah, the writing of the women has issues, as has the writing of like non-white people in general. So you can basically assume that most of it was written by white men.
Yeah, and by looking at the episode editors, all of them were white dudes, from what I understand. Looking at the wiki and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, the rest got already explained. He's sadly the one that suffers the most because I not know what happens. Uh, but there's really some weirdness that she just disappears for like not half but a lot of the show.
yeah, it's bizarre, and I hope that we can actually talk to her, and maybe find out something about why that happened. If it was like a budget thing, and she got just written out, or if there was like writing problems, or what was happening. We can only speculate right now.
Before we wrap this, there's two things I took very much that I think we should mention. First, I just want to say because we're gonna do the other this a lot along with the awareness about that cat. There's also awareness along among how this show is ordered because there's two orders for this episode of how to watch it.
Oh God,
One,
I hate
I
this
think
part because it's caused me so much pain.
I think you explain. My co-host will explain the awareness about this show.
No, that's the thing. I actually don't didn't think about it since we watched the show like at the beginning of this year, and that I basically how is it called? It's I repressed the memory of how the thing is, but there's two different orders to the show because the way it got written into Wikipedia is the wrong order as far as I remember. But there's a YouTube list because all of this show is free on YouTube. I should mention that. All of this is on YouTube, and they have the right order because in the plot, if you take the Wikipedia order, there's like a part that makes no sense, where something gets set up and doesn't pay off for like 4 episodes. But yeah, we'll go into detail with that in the later episodes.
I think we do. I just we mentioned this before, but I don't want to go. I want to just to go one more about just the weirdness with this because let this show like you mentioned very much something made as a commercialized version of like consequence of their data. And like we mentioned before, those music hosts on the site. The site also has music recommendations, and every episode ends with the music, with a listed group of musicians.
Yeah, we mentioned that beforehand, and I guess that's also gonna be something that we're gonna talk about later. Like, we'll explain the structure of the overall podcast later, and then we'll explain to you how that happens. But we are gonna talk about the music, and it's very much of its time. The show is very much of its time, and there's something we might have not mentioned yet that's very important. This show is actually amazing. Like, this show is incredible. We talk about it, like, about all the problems here, but what we actually want to bring over is that we really enjoyed this show, and it goes places and it does things, even if it's like not always unproblematic, even if it has very much flaws. The things it does sometimes are amazing.
I really want to mention that we are both basically just fans of this show, making this podcast just to talk about it, because there was a podcast for this, but it's like from 2018 with 2 episodes. So we do want to just say the word what Freakinix is, because it's a very interesting piece of pre-9/11 media, and like commercializing of youth culture that both very rare but very good at times, and just frankly it an interesting relic of TV from that era.
Yeah, it's very much 2000, early 2000s pre 9/11 nostalgia.
But yeah, I think I might as well just explain how the show how Freaky Links works as a show, because it's very much feels X-Filesy, not just in the general this so what people capture in the supernatural. So how the show works is there's the classic formula with X-Files, where there's the so-called like standalone episodes, and then there's a mythology episodes. Basically, there's the episodes where they go to a random case, and there's the episodes where they're very much tied to the overall myth and lot of the show and storyline.
Yeah, Freaky Link totally copies that formula, more or less. Sometimes they forget about it for a while.
Yeah, I do think it's important to mention that this show is very kind of confused. That probably has to do with the stuff that we'll cover in episode 1 about how this about some behind the scenes drama, because it's very much a thing that you can notice when an episode is for the Lord, but it's very much confused even when it very much has those episodes. It's part of the formula, but it's very much confused.
There's literally an episode that is built up as a mythology episode, but you don't learn a single thing about what actually happened with the main plot, but it makes you think you would learn something the entire time, and it's very much a cop-out. And I don't know if it was an accident or if it's on purpose. But it should also be mentioned that this show, the main plot, spoilers, it doesn't resolve.
It got cancelled in 13 episodes, and we're not spoiled, but the episode 13 is something special, and it's very different from the rest of the show.
Yeah, it's very much a big fuck you to the Fox network, I think.
From what I understand, this thing basically got from what the research we do, this thing basically got killed on arrival. It was field drama and production, like we talk about. The David Squire put that fake name. So what happens? It was not getting ratings. So what happened is it was basically kind of dead on arrival.
Oh, that reminds me. We didn't actually think about talking about the critical reception of the show because it wasn't good. People hated it mostly.
Yeah, we should go over it. Like going at it was basically that when people saw when Vicky Links live on TV, just going by takes on the first couple of episodes, people, at least critics, absolutely kind of hated it. The pieces we could find about it absolutely kind of was just so mocking it and knocking on it 24 hours.
Yeah.
There's a lot of snack and people gunning it. Of course, it's the X-Files connection as well as like people comparing to Blair Witch.
Yeah, there's just also the style of like late 90s, early 2000s snarky criticism, like being very ironic and detached.
Yeah, if you look like about the reviews, because a lot of these reviews are tied to like channel TV seasons guides and everything. So look, it's just very much freaky links. It's the worst. More freaky links, more like not freaky links, more like the not more like the distinct text files.
More like the unfreaky links.
More like not freaking links. Not freaking links by corner.
Sadly, no corn in this show. Spoilers.
Slipknot to show up in a way.
In a way, we'll get to that eventually.
We're gonna go to that mess. We're gonna use. It's gonna be very fun when we talk about that.
Yes.
But yeah, it's very much it's very much suffered from like it was. Like it's very much a Fox TV show. It suffered from the fact that it could not be it could not be the X Files. There was behind the scenes drama, and it could not be the free as well as also it could not be from the Blair Witch.
It could not at all be the Blair Witch. That was very obvious, but it's a very interesting show. So yeah, it's this guy, and he's called Derek. No, oh yeah, he's called Derek, and he has a team of co-workers, and he's doing investigation on paranormal stuff and ghosts and cryptids. They weren't actually called cryptids that much back then because that was more a thing of the later internet age. But we're gonna call them cryptids anyway.
They're basically cryptids.
They're basically all cryptids.
Also, the show stole a lot from like actual mythology of non-white people. We're gonna talk about that.
Yeah, there's gonna be a bunch to talk about. But actually, he has a brother he worked with to like create the site Freaky Links, where he basically advertises his services, because he's like, yeah, he has like a small company at this point. And his brother dies, and then there's, let's say, shenanigans ensue. I can't describe it any way else, because it sets up a very much, and it pays off very little.
Like we're gonna I'm just going to two things. The rest of about I guess the story of this is gonna be explained in episode 1, because it's very much tied to the pilot. Derek's also the voice of the site. So as the show goes on, there's cases that are not on the show, and there's extra content in the site, and very much trying to go to something. It's very much all from Derek's perspective.
Yeah, I also theorized if those were like either scrapped episode ideas or ideas for a second season that never got released.
I think it's important to mention. I guess I don't care really about spoilers. This like I mentioned, the show doesn't have really an end. But the site, we go maybe do a bonus episode on the site. But the site actually continues after the show for a while.
Yeah, they wrote like more articles, so it's very weird. Maybe they also thought they would get picked up by another network, but I doubt it.
It's very much interesting. I'll say this. The show doesn't have it wavers to an overall plot. There's setups, but it feels very much something that didn't even got cancelled in season 1. It feels like 13 episodes from a 44 episode season.
It could never like fully establish its world, and it could never get to its full potential.
Yeah, I think that's important. We talked about this. But the Stone changes a lot. That's a different show than episode 1, episode 2, like I mentioned. The tone can be what a scattershot.
Yes, it can really change within one episode, like between scenes, between like something incredibly tragic or something, and then shenanigans in the next one. So there's some tone issues.
It's really weird because it very much feels something very much steers together various things. So it's just have like there's the like youth cult trying to be cool, ironic aspect of it. But there's also just trying to be a horror. So there's also just the overall plot. It's very much a collection of things stitched together that doesn't fit.
I think actually like it kind of fits together, but it makes it overall like it looks like a weird show. but then it's cool because actually it can explore different kinds of concepts. So it could go into a like almost procedural style episode where they investigate a mystery, and then the other episode is just pure horror or something. That's actually something I like about it, but sometimes it just overdoes it and has like total problems with establishing when something should be serious and when it should be funny.
Yeah, the show actually can like because it's it will be somewhat positive on the show. It very much can be good at just doing different things and ever just being the one thing. It very much can be good at like doing stuff. We're gonna talk about it. The reason our podcast is named Desert Squid is it's named after episode 7, and all our sites it's a real wide episode.
Yeah, it really. We thought Desert Squid would be good, but we didn't expect what actually would be in the Desert Squid.
It's very much like that and episode 13 that we'll talk about. It's very much so when it can strike at being weird and bizarre.
It's like at its most powerful when it doesn't try to be X-Files and Blair Witch Project at the same time. When it tries to be its own thing.
Yeah, but there's also a lot of issues again that tone and everything that we'll go into because it's very much part of like the issue of the production, the issues of how the show was received, and just the issue about this everybody knowing this will be dead when it's dead. Basically, I do want to mention that I cannot find if Haxon.
Oh, we didn't even mention that the show was like cancelled and back on air once.
Yeah, I think the show was back. The show was back on air. What happened was basically the show. From what we can find, is basically the show was cancelled. I guess after I think 5 episodes. Then for some massacre, we don't know how, got back on air.
Yeah, I think they basically took it on a break or something for over a summer, and then they brought it back. But it was like a semi-cancellation.
It's very much, I guess it's very much like trying to see if anybody cared about it cancelled. And I guess Fox just wanted to put the rest of the episode as well as just Haxon.
Yeah, basically recuperate as much of the losses they had made, probably.
Yeah, but like I mentioned, it's so mentioned that like I don't know if Haxon is still alive or now. It's very weird to see if they are still alive or now as a company, but they still listed on their website and everything, so it's not forgotten. Well, it's forgotten if you ask David S. Goyer, but that's another thing.
Yeah, David S. Goyer went on to have a career, and for Haxon it was basically the beginning of the end. Freaky Links.
I think we talked about enough about the show. I think it's time to explain how this thing actually will work as a podcast. Then.
Yeah, I think we'll keep it quick. Basically, we're gonna have one monthly release schedule, and the episodes are gonna be very different, very similar in structure, except if we get like bonus episodes or interviews. Basically, we're gonna give a quick summary of each episode after the intro. And then we're gonna go into an analysis review part. And then in the last third, we're gonna have a section where we talk about the bands that were featured in each episode and where they are now. Some of them are still big. Most of them are not.
Yeah, I think it's very important because, like, the music list is very weird, and there's a weird thing that we'll talk about, like in the music segment, where there's this combination of absolutely kind of zilliest acts, and then there's actually like kind of actually known indies, and even the mainstream acts.
The first episode has a lot of big acts in it, and I think it was probably either because Goyer demanded it or because they had it in the script and then it just did it.
Was that the one with Soulfly in it?
No, that's the first episode is the one with ZZ Top and Massive Attack.
Okay, it's not the one with fucking the Sepultura guy.
No, we get that later. That's almost at the end of the show.
Okay, that sounds gonna be very fun.
So yeah, I think we are almost at the end of this episode 0.
So I think it's important to just to do a quick shout out to what they have. So just a quick thing. My Twitter handle is Arisworth1, but if you want to support this podcast or me, I have a Patreon where I promote all my work. And Ludo, do you have any shout
Uh,
out?
yeah, I guess you can follow me on Twitter, Ludovico_limited. I also have Twitch. It's probably the same name. You'll find it. It's linked on my Twitter. And yeah,
Yeah,
that's basically it for me.
yeah. My I forgot to mention I have both an YouTube channel and a Twitter, both the same names. My YouTube channel is Arisworth Water. My Twitter is Arisworth Water. So if you just look up, you can easily find them. I cover obscure media in the mostly obscure games, of course, in both of those. And I just want to say thanks for everybody to listening. Thanks for everybody. This has been a nice explanation of what the sauna to do. And yeah, thanks everybody.
See you next time, people.
So,
Goodbye.
yeah.
Here we go. The Freaky League's team is determined to uncover the truth behind the strange and unusual.
Still chasing things that go bump in the night?
Stranger things have happened, but not on your TV. Freaky Links, Foxfall.